Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. It takes us to new business. The first item of new business is BRD1. Let me get to it. This is a board resolution. I'll read the recommendation. I recommend the board approve resolution 20-01 regarding the need for additional federal education funding in response to COVID-19. Is there a motion? Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, second by Dr. Robinson. Discussion, Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you, everyone. And I just really appreciate this board helping to present this resolution of the School Board of Palm Beach County with the Council of Great City Schools for supporting information to go out to the federal government as it relates to the pandemic. Now, you heard today from Michael Burke. He really laid it out to you of the crisis that we're in as it relates to our budget at the state level and as at the federal level. And as you look at the resolution that's coming before you today, much of what he said is listed right here in this resolution. But I'd probably like to go over a few little points from this resolution and to ask you to definitely approve it, because we've got to communicate with our state as well as our federal leaders. And this is our last chance to get this money that's necessary for our children, for their education, for their safety and health as we move forward during this critical time. So I'm going to go through pieces of this resolution, but not the whole thing. And I wanted it pulled for the community, for everyone to know that we are really, really serious about making sure that we let our Congress, as well as our senators, as well as our state leaders know that we're in a serious time as it relates to funding and this budget crisis that we're in. So as I start out saying, whereas the COVID-19 pandemic is a monumental and unprecedented challenge emerging quickly and demanding an immediate overhaul of the instructional plans and strategies of school systems across the country. And we know that public schools remain committed to delivering high quality instruction while ensuring for the health and safety of students and staff. The biggest thing, instruction, health, and safety. And COVID-19 is affecting our economy. We already know that. We've seen it on the television, and we know the destabilizing funding of public schools is creating a crisis for our children and our communities. And we know that economists have pledged and predicted that we're going to have a deep recession. You heard that today from Mr. Burke, and it could be long lasting. We know that it could be a nationwide recession that is likely to impact our poorest children, our poorest citizens to the highest degree. So when we look at it, we see that unemployment claims already are very, very high. And we know that we're in a Great Depression state right now, and it's only going to grow. So we really do need the finance to take us to the next level. Public school systems across the country are already incurring substantial unexpected costs to provide meal services as we've been feeding the children, feeding families, as well as to deploy digital instructional devices as we're doing our distance learning. We know we're going to need the finance to take it to the next level for our devices. And public school systems are facing difficult decisions about how to allocate the dwindling financial resources to sustain high quality instruction. So this is what we're talking about, those hard choices that we're going to have to make because we know that we're going to have high quality instruction and essential services for our students and families over the next several years. So we know the revenue shortfalls are here, and it's results of the budget cuts and personnel reductions in our system. It's coming, everybody, and it's going to be difficult, but we've got to make these decisions to help our students, to help our communities, and we've got to get the money from the federal government. So many students will face many obstacles as we go through this, but we got to make it so that our students will be able to survive and be successful. And so you heard Mr. Burke talk about what happened in 2009, where we got the $100 billion with the ARA Act, and we had the education stabilization monies where we could really do things with our Title I and our students with disabilities. we had the federal government watching our back during those times. And during those times, we were able to retain employees in Palm Beach County School District back in 2010, as well as across the country. And a lot of our employees, we were able to recall back to work. But now, with this Coronavirus Act relief and the economic security cares, the $13 billion, you know that we're getting less than half of 1% of the total $2.2 trillion coming from the CARES Act. So we've got to reach out to our community leaders. We've got to reach out to our elected officials at the local level, but we certainly have to go right to Congress immediately. And we know that our school districts across the country are the largest employers that we have. And as I work closely with the Council of Great City Schools on your behalf, we stand with the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, the National School Board Association, the American Association of School Administrators, and the National Parent Teacher Association, and others. We're calling for some $200 billion in relief for our nation's public schools. We need it so that we can take care of our children. So we know this is the minimal. And so as a result, I want us to know that be it resolved, the School Board of Palm Beach County stands strong with this resolution to call on the congressional delegation, including our United States senators, our House of Representatives, to advocate to approve this additional federal funding. So my fellow board members, we got to get that money from the federal government. And now with the HEROES Act that was passed at the House just the other day, and I know it's going to the Senate soon, it's going to be a fight, but we've got to help get that passed so that we can take care of our children. So at this point in time, this resolution is coming from the School District of Palm Beach County by our chairman, Mr. Barbieri, and our superintendent, and I'm hoping that this board will approve it. Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments? Ms. Whitfield, go ahead.
Thank you. I just actually had a question for staff on that. I was wondering where they were going to be sending the resolution so that we can know who's going to get it, and is there a way that we can share it with as many people in the federal level as possible?
Mr. Littlejohn, do you have any idea where it's going to go?
I do not know where it goes, Mr. Barbieri, but we can find that out and let the board know.
Mr. Barbieri?
Mr. Tierney just came on, he possibly had an answer to that.
Yeah. Mr. Barbieri, I do know where it's going.
Go ahead, Mr.
Can you hear me, Mr. Barbieri?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. Go ahead.
We're going to send this copy back to the Council of Great City Schools. They're asking all of our big, large urban districts that are members of the Council of Great City Schools to put this together to actually have it delivered to Congress as well as to the Senate. So this is where it's going right back. The copy will be sent to the Council of Great City Schools.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews.
Great, so I'll ask after it's signed by the superintendent and myself, I'll make sure that it's sent out to all of you so that if you want to forward it on to whoever with personal notes, you can make sure you get that out. So we'll make sure that's done. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote on the motion to approve the resolution. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next item on the agenda is BRD 2, posthumous proclamation for William F. Malone. I recommend let me get through that one. It's not opening up. Come on, computer. I recommend the board approve the posthumous proclamation for former Superintendent William F. Malone Sr. Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Brill, seconded by Mr. Shaw. And I'd like to read the resolution into the record. Proclamation number 20-02, May 20, 2020. The School Board of Palm Beach County, Florida wants to recognize William Bill F. Malone Sr., who recently passed away, and to issue this proclamation. Whereas William Bill Malone, a former Palm Beach County School District Superintendent, passed away on May 3rd, 2020. And whereas Bill Malone was born in Hollywood, California, and grew up in Buckhead Ridge, Georgia. And whereas William Malone served as Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Army from 1965 through 1982, served in Vietnam and held many distinguished positions in the United States and Germany, and was awarded 2 Bronze Star medals for exemplary service. And whereas William Bill Malone graduated with a bachelor's degree in engineering from Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and was an honor graduate from the United States Army Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And whereas William Bill Malone would hold various positions in the United States Army Corps of Engineers, South Florida Water Management District, and the School District of Palm Beach County. And whereas William Bill Malone was hired as Chief of Facilities Management for the Palm Beach County School District on July 1st, 2000. And whereas William Bill Malone also held the position of Chief Operating Officer from June 20, 2001 through June 3rd, 2002, which I believe is an error, and we'll deal with that in a modification to the motion in a second. And whereas William Bill Malone returned to the district 9 years later as acting superintendent for 3 months before subsequently being named superintendent in May of 2011, a position he held until November of that same year. Now, therefore, the School Board of Palm Beach County, Florida proclaims that the foregoing recitals are true, correct, and incorporated into this proclamation by this reference. The school board wishes to honor and recognize posthumously William Bill F. Malone Sr. for his contributions to the school district for many years of dedicated service and for his service to the community. In Section 3, the proclamation shall take effect immediately upon this 20th day of May, 2020. The only thing I'd like to ask is the maker of the motion modify the motion to allow the board clerk to correct the date. I believe he was Chief Operating Officer from June 20, 2001 through a date beyond June 3rd, 2002. I believe he was still here in 2003. So if who made the motion? Dr. Robinson?
Yes, and the motion will include the correction of the dates.
Okay, great. And who seconded that motion? Mr. Shaw did. So you agree with that, Mr. Shaw? Okay. So unless there's any other comments, any comments from anybody else? Ms. Brill?
I believe I made the motion, just for the record.
Okay, as long as everybody agrees, we're going to modify the resolution. Okay, good. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the motion as modified. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next item is the BRD revised IG search timeline. I recommend the board approve the revised IG search timeline as submitted. Motion? Ms. Brill, seconded by somebody. Somebody wants to second the motion?
I'll second.
I don't know if I'm frozen again, but McQuinn will second.
Okay. Yes, both you, both Mr. Quinn and Mrs. Andrews are both frozen. I can't see anything other than. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Superintendent, that'll take us to COM1.
Yes, sir. COM1, Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month Proclamation. I recommend the board proclaim May 2020 as Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Whitfield. Second? Mr. Brill. Any discussion? Ms. Brill.
This really falls into the proclamation, just since we are recognizing mental health awareness, just again to reiterate the effects of our students really being locked down at home on virtual learning. It does have effects, whether it be directly on their mental health, child abuse, and things of that nature. So I think that, we will be having more discussions as a board on the mental health support. I know Dr. Fenoy has already indicated that we are going to be looking at that, but I just want to use this time as a reminder that we are going to see a lot more issues as the result, after the result of this pandemic.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Dr. Robinson, you're opposed? Okay, all in favor, motion passes 7-0. COM2, Mr. Superintendent?
Mr. Barbieri?
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to read it into the record.
Go ahead, Ms.
The
Whipple.
mental health proclamation. Is that okay?
Yes, Mr. Whipple, go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll do it. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I feel like my internet is worse than it's ever been. So I did really want to read this into the record because, like Ms. Brill said, I feel like we are going through an unprecedented time for mental health right now. So I think it's very important that we recognize the struggles that our teachers and our students are going through right now, and all of our staff members working from home and not getting that social interaction that helps so much. So the proclamation for Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month, May of 2020, whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas everyone experiences times of stress and struggles in their lives, and whereas 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 youth ages 13 to 18 experience serious mental illness, and whereas 60% of adults and 50% of youth do not receive treatment necessary for their mental health needs due to limited or no knowledge of the need, barriers to care, or fear and shame, and whereas research recognizes that adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, are traumatic events that have profound effects on the child's developing brain and body, can result in poor physical and mental health during childhood and adulthood. ACEs include, but are not limited to, physical, emotional, sexual abuse, physical and emotional neglect, household dysfunction, untreated mental illness, incarceration of a household member, domestic violence and separation or divorce involving household members, and whereas community understanding and available supports and services can greatly impact a person's ability to handle their stress and struggle and move forward, and whereas promoting mental health and wellness leads to higher overall productivity, better educational outcomes, lower crime rates, stronger economies, lower healthcare costs, improved family life, improved quality of life, and increased lifespan, and whereas studies show that the effects of ACEs are felt by people regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status, and whereas the school board of the School District of Palm Beach County recognizes the impact of awareness and education, access to services, and acceptance of the importance of mental health and well-being to a person's overall success, and supports the implementation of trauma-informed approaches throughout the systems of care. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the superintendent and the school board of Palm Beach County do hereby proclaim May 2020 as Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month on the 20th day of May 2020 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you so much for the time to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Woodfield. We already voted on that to pass 7-0. So the next item on the agenda would be COM2. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, sir. COM2. I recommend the board proclaim May 2020 as Haitian Heritage Month.
We have a motion. Motion by Dr. Robinson, seconded by Ms. Brill. Dr. Robinson?
Yes, thank you. This is the proclamation for Haitian Heritage Month, May 2020. Whereas the growth and prosperity of Palm Beach County, Florida is due in part to an ethnic diversity that includes a substantial and rapidly increasing Haitian population. And whereas we recognize the valuable contributions of the Haitian people in the fight for the independence of the United States of America, especially in the Battle of Savannah, and pay due tribute to their endowment. And whereas the Haitian population in South Florida joins together during the month of May to commemorate their Flag Day and celebrate their historical and cultural identity. And whereas it is appropriate to promote awareness and understanding of cultural diversity in our society in order to strengthen the self-esteem of our multicultural student population and improve their academic achievement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the superintendent and school board of Palm Beach County do hereby proclaim May 2020 as Haitian Heritage Month and highlight the unique diversity of the Haitian culture and contributions done this 20th day of May 2020 in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item, Mr. Superintendent, is ELR2 2020, or ELR2.
Yes, sir. ELR2. I recommend the board approve the attached tentative agreement pending ratification by PBA. This item has been added to the agenda to allow for timely ratification and payroll processing within the current fiscal year.
We have a motion by Dr. Robinson, second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. FC3, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. If you wouldn't do me a favor, my screen is locked up, so I can't read FC3. Never mind, it just popped up. I recommend the board approve the change to project title for funding for the South Intensive Transition Project and change order number 1 to Walton Smith, Inc., contract in the not to exceed amount of $611,000.
Motion, Mrs. Brill, seconded by Mrs. Whitfield. Any discussion? Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. So I pulled this, I'm going to support this, but I just want to make the point. So in my mind, facilities are to support the educational programming. I also believe, and I think most of us would agree, that our alternative ed students need the CTE or PSAV educational options more than any other group of students. They are the group of students that we really need to make sure have the skill set to be able to feed their family, coming out of high school or shortly thereafter. And so this is another opportunity, and I don't want us to miss it. So we're talking about the South Intensive School moving on to what has been the old South Tech campus. Now, we know South Tech. We know there are multiple programs where they give children skills to make a living, right? And so this is an opportunity for us to say, as a board, that we want the alternative ed children, in this case, specifically South Intensive, to be able to take advantage of those existing facilities and get the CTE programming so that they too will be able to feed their families and hopefully get them and keep them on the right path. And so that's why I pulled this. I understand that there are plans to put these young people in the portables that are currently on the campus of what I'm calling Old South Tech. I don't think that's ideal, but I don't even want to argue those details now. What I want is to say that I am very clear that the educational programming for the South Intensive students when they move onto the Old South Tech campus should take advantage of the Old South Tech facility and provide those job skills.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Mrs. Whitfield.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a second to thank Ms. Paul for taking the conditions of the school at South Intensive so seriously and spending so much time with her staff to be able to find appropriate accommodations for these students. I think it says a lot that we are respecting them in this moment to give them a new space to be in, and I think it's been long overdue. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Ms. Paul.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitfield. And also, I'd like to thank Mrs. Paul. After Dr. Robinson invited me to come see that school, and I was totally disgusted and appalled by the conditions, I had told Mrs. Paul that there's no way I was going to sit quietly if those children had to go back to that facility this year. So I know that she worked very hard to find a place to put them, and I agree with Dr. Robinson. It's not just a place to put them, but it's got to be, it's got to be changes to the way we deal with the children we put in those schools. So I'm hopeful that not only we see them at a more appropriate facility, but also have a more appropriate curriculum for them so that they can actually move forward rather than just be housed somewhere for a while. So if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Wait.
Dr. Robinson?
Wait. Yes, thank you. So before we move on, I understand that what I'm talking about is not directly the facility, but I would just request my fellow board members, if you don't want to make any statement about it now, that you make a statement to the superintendent and staff at some later time about your feelings about the need for vocational programming for our alternative ed students. Some of you may remember that we moved the alternative ed program that had been housed at the historic Roosevelt High School to the previous Inlet Grove, previous North Tech, so that they could take advantage of those automotive bays there. And somehow still, we have managed to not make that happen, right? So I would like for the board to add their voice to mine whether it's publicly or privately, to the superintendent in this regards, because it's pay me now or pay me later. If we're going to say we want to save the lives and give these children who have gotten on the wrong path true opportunities for their lives, and we will put these programs in place, and we will not completely destroy the old South Tech, because they need that facility to get their educational programming, or else all we're doing is a shell game. And I'm gonna leave it there. I could really like take off with this, but I'm just gonna ask my board members to either weigh in today or to the superintendent privately, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a travesty if we do not take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you.
Dr. Robertson, I agree with you. I know Mrs. Whitfield wants to speak, and so does Mrs. Andrews, but when we met that day at that school with the principal, and I was told all the things that those kids didn't have that school had been asking for, including this type of training and educational abilities that they weren't being given. I agree with you 100%. And I made that very clear personally to the superintendent, and I'm sure that other board members want to weigh in on that also. There's no sense in just housing kids somewhere to get them through the years without giving them the skills they need to move forward. And certainly they need those programs that we make available to all the other children in the district. They should be part of that also. Mrs. Whitfield and then Mrs. Andrews.
I was just going to ask Dr. Fenoy, it's my understanding that Dr. Sheffield is currently working on improvements to the alternative education programs that we have. And so when can we expect to hear about those changes next?
Yeah, so Dr. Sheffield isn't spearheading that group. I mean, there are people on her team. And so they've been working on that for a while. I think obviously a lot of things have been put on pause as we try to figure out how to get back to school. But it's definitely on our list of things to, obviously the facility was an issue. Obviously we're still working on contracts with South Tech at the new Odyssey site. We finally have got to a place with Palm Beach State to talk about the future of all of the CTE work. So it hasn't left any of our, it's still very high on our priority list. Right now it's just in the midst of everything else we have to figure out. So it hasn't gone anywhere.
Thank you. Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you. And I know you can't see me, but I want to be clear. I've been talking to Dr. Fenoy as well as Wanda Paul, certainly about the programs there and the facility. I too went to the school over a year ago. I've been in touch with the principal who's been asking for a lot of help. And when you look at our children who are left behind, this is an ideal spot right here at the South Area Alternative where these children had been forgotten. The deplorable conditions, the books, the rooms, everything was back in another century when I went there. It was terrible. And so when we talk about vocational programs and the new South Tech piece for the facility, we need to recap and do everything we need to do to give these children what we need. That's what I was asking about earlier tonight. What was happening to the children in the alternative programs, the ones that will drop out because nobody cares. And this is a spot, this South Area Alternative has been a forgotten land for the children based on where they have been. I have to thank the teachers who just endured it because it was a bad situation, and the principal and everybody else that didn't give up on the children. But now that they have this new site, we need to redo the whole model and make sure that these children get what they need, vocational and educationally, and the love they should get as we move forward. And it's been going on for a while, so I'm thankful that we finally made one step, but we've got a long way to go for those children.
Thank you, Mrs. Andrews. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. Several years ago, we had these conversations about alternative ed, and it is a problem, and I think we have the opportunity now to make some changes. When we did the conversion of South Tech and North Tech to the charter schools, we essentially let them take over all of the vocational trainings. We then moved into the area of our choice programs, and we let all of our alternative programs go to the wayside. So it is something that we need to be dealing with and take that focus back on the needs of the students, because I think Dr. Robinson's point was very valid, because we aren't doing what we need for these students, but we have the opportunity, and I think it's something that we need to look at as a comprehensive change, because there was a time when we would not have wanted the alternative students in our vocational programs, And it's time to make that change.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Superintendent, I guess you've heard from most of us.
Well, and Mr. Barbieri, since you can't see me, just please add McQuinn to that.
Gotcha, Ms. McQuinn. I'm sorry. Yes, we can't see you. Mr. Superintendent, so you've heard from all of us. So can you get back to the board sometime before school starts, whenever that might be in the fall, and let us know what kind of programs we can have for those kids next year, so we're not waiting another year to get some programs in place for those students, what kind of opportunities they'll have that other children in our district also have.
Yeah, we can commit to that. Mr. Oswald's entire division, this is part of their work group. And so we will definitely, it'll be part of our back to school presentations for all of our students. We'll have to have some plans. But let me be very clear. I think a lot of our summer plans, I think whatever we come up with for getting back to school will only be a phase of it. Like, I don't want the community to think that whatever we come up with will be perfect. Like, it'll be the way it'll be in perpetuity in August. I think this is going to be an evolution of work over the course of over the next year and more. But we have that on the agenda. But I think as we figure out the COVID pieces, and we still have construction going on in some places, this is something that team has been given permission to think outside of the box about. And I think we now are creating structures and have some project managers to help them achieve those goals. So, yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. So, yeah, I realize that there's a lot of complicating factors here, right? But if I just look narrowly at this project, then what I'm talking about will require that we get more creative about how to meet the needs of South Transportation as well, right? Because as I understand, the plan was to basically tear down, demolish some of the facilities that were used for the vocational education in order to make space for the repaired, renewed, redone, new South Transportation. Now, I do want us to meet the needs of South Transportation. And so it's gonna take some creativity. But my point is, I think that if we look and as they say, think out of the box, that we can make all of this happen. I just think it would be just a shame to destroy facilities that could be used for these children to receive a vocational education like next year. I get all these other factors, right? But let's pretend that that's settled down. We're in bricks and mortar. These young people at South Intensive could start, for example, taking the culinary arts class. Facilities are there, right? So I don't want us to destroy the facilities that are necessary for these young people to get this vocational education just because it is on the plan to be torn down for South Transportation. We have to figure it out. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw.
Just a quick reminder to some of us who've been around for a long time, part of this discussion was because there was a period of time in the district that the only focus we had was getting kids ready for college. And that focus that we had led to so much discussion on that issue that we forgot the importance of our vocational programs. And it also had an impact on our adult education programs.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Superintendent, is it possible, I know we're going to vote on this anyway, but is it possible for your staff to come back to the board sometime in the next several meetings and tell us exactly what you plan on doing in the way of keeping some of those facilities there for these students, so that we don't find out after the fact that what Dr. Robinson is suggesting didn't get done?
I have to ask the question. I mean, part of the tension point is just the condition of the facilities. I mean, you have to remember there's a reason why we're moving the conversion charter school out. So some of that, I think in the past we've been through our facility conditions and, the age of the building and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we can bring some stuff back, but I think I need to bring back up what we've already established about the physical structure, and then also look about all of our other options across the county. I mean, I think you have to remember that's part of the problem is, and then we compound it obviously with this financial crisis we're about to embark upon. But I think it's a broader conversation than just the existing facility. Is how do we utilize facilities that we actually have? But I think right now, this is sort of the stop measure to get them out of the deplorable conditions they're in now, get them over there, and set that up. And I think in the meantime, to Dr. Robinson's point, where we can use those facilities, we absolutely will. But I think we need to have a broader discussion around where they land permanently and mix that in with all of our stuff with Palm Beach State and our expansion of CTE across our own network. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. If there's any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. P2, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes. P2. My mic on, yes. I recommend the board approve the termination of contract with New York University, Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development entered into on July 1st, 2018.
Motion? Mr. Shaw, seconded by Ms. Brill. Discussion? Dr. Robinson, did you pull that?
Okay, thank you. So I'm not going to support this. I'm not going to support this because I'm not convinced yet that staff tried to make it work. Now, what I don't understand is if it says in the answer to my questions, it says that NYU is open to a January 21 start date. It says NYU is also open to starting to recruit in September, right? They weren't open to my bright idea of having a rolling enrollment. So, okay, that's fine. But if they're open to these other two options, why are we just going to cancel the contract instead of amending it to include these two options as possibilities?
Hello? I had a switch.
Hello?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, Mr. Superintendent, is Dr. LaCava going to respond to that question?
Yeah, he's trying to. I can see him on the screen trying to respond. He might be having some technical difficulty. He had a phone and his computer on at the same time. So if we can move forward, as soon as he can get reconnected, I have him answer that question. I can see him talking.
My comments actually mirror Dr. Robinson's, if I can speak, and then he can answer.
You guys hear me yet?
No,
Yeah,
you're good.
hold on a minute, Dr. LaCava. Go ahead, Ms. Brill. You have some comments you want to
Well,
make?
what I was going to say is that I actually printed out the response to Dr. Robinson's questions, and if it wasn't pulled, I was going to speak to the superintendent. You know, it's really hard to predict what next year is going to look like. We all know that. NYU is struggling like we're struggling. My request of Dr. Fenoy was going to be to see about having a new contract. Number 5 in the answers was that they're willing to extend the current contract for an additional 2 years and begin recruiting in 2021. I was going to say, let's just do a new contract. But, because right now it's just so early in this whole process to really know what tomorrow looks like. But I agree with Dr. Robinson and the comments made at the last board meeting. We don't want to lose this program, but I just don't know whether you extend it or just agree to write a new contract if everything's opening up, come the fall.
Thank you, Ms. Brill. Dr. LaCava?
Yeah, if you good evening, Mr. Barbieri and board members. If I could just hear Dr. Robinson's question, because she was in and out of my Wi-Fi, and I believe my Wi-Fi is not doing very well. So, Dr. Robinson, if you don't mind, can you repeat that question and statement?
So essentially the question is, why, if NYU is willing to open for January 2021 start date, and they're also open to the 2021, August 2021, and start recruiting September 2020, then why don't we just amend this contract instead of canceling this and then waiting to see, whatever, to do a new contract? I am just concerned that it requires more energy to start all over again than to amend the contract, and I don't want to lose this program.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much in my conversation with New York University, they were open to any or various options. You know, we were talking through these questions. I went back and asked them several questions in regards to that. So they are open to staying with us. They value the partnership. They see great things happening at these two schools that the students are working at. We did talk about, option one, which is, continuing the program immediately, right, with 5 students. But it would need an immediate answer by the board today. And then the other piece in regards to, I believe you're talking about January 2021 start date. The only thing with that piece is that they would have to go back to their NYU faculty and actually approve, a January start date. So that could be complicated if they say no. And then the final piece is if we decide that we want to continue with NYU, but at a later time, I do believe, and I don't know if we have legal counsel on the line, that we would have to terminate this contract and then start writing it again. But I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to leave that up for Blair to decide. But they are open to continuing the work, and I know Dr. Fenoy is also open to continuing this partnership as well. It might look a little different than we had, but I don't know if anybody in legal counsel wants to chime in regards to, can we amend this contract, or do we need to terminate and write a new one?
Mr. Littlejohn, you want to respond?
Can you hear me, Mr. Barbieri?
Yes, ma'am. You can be fine.
I'm trying to listen on the phone because the audio on my computer has been so bad. I think that the contract can be amended to do what Dr. Robinson has requested, if that's what the will of the board is, and it can be rewritten and brought back at the next meeting or a future meeting.
All right. I think Mrs. Andrews Mrs. Andrews, were you trying to ask a question or make a comment? Your microphone went on. I'm not sure.
Yes, I was. Thank you. And I know you can't see me, but I support this. I would not vote for this because guess what? We don't know what we're going to look like. And when we talk about the schools where these teachers are teaching the children, this is where you find many teachers do not want to teach. So we need this program, and whatever it takes to get them here, I'm going to support that. So I'm not supporting to get rid of this contract. That's not anything I can support.
Ms. Brill.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, I was going to support a new contract for in the fall when we see how things play out. But I'd like to hear from Dr. Fenoy to hear his thoughts about it.
Yeah. So, I guess I can't quite understand what's wrong with the new contract. Like, I don't understand why we don't want to explore, because our current contract was written under our current conditions. And so why couldn't we, the reason why we even brought this forward is because of the conditions that were in the existing contract. We had a certain number of days and blah, 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 blah. And at the time we weren't sure. So, the steps that it would take to augment it, why couldn't we just write a new contract to make sure that both organizations were protected in case budget shortfalls come forward and we can't execute on the original contract? So I don't understand why no one wants to write a new contract.
I have Mrs. Brill and then Dr. Robinson. Ms. Brill first.
Thank you. And so that was really my point is I will support the recommendation with the understanding to the superintendent that it is our desire to be able to continue this program, but that we need to, as you said, there are other mitigating factors right now. And that new contract may have to be tweaked in so many ways that you can't really amend the contract that you have. So I will support the recommendation with the understanding that the superintendent knows that this is what our desire is.
Dr. Robinson, go ahead, then Mrs. Whitfield.
So I would be fine with the new contract if it was on the agenda now. My problem is I've watched this movie before. So this contract gets terminated, and then little by little we find it's all these other little reasons why we don't enter into a new contract, which kind of comes up to like it's hard, right? I mean, I'm just saying, legally, I think we could make either one work. But whatever. My point is, I want to continue this program. I'm not going to support the termination. If you had a termination and a new contract on the same agenda, I would support both. But I've seen this movie before, and I'm not interested in losing this program because it's hard for us to figure it out.
Mrs. Whitfield.
Yeah, so I'm having a really hard time hearing everyone, but my understanding is that if we vote this proposal down today, we have to enter into contract on Friday, right? Is that the case?
Mr. Littlejohn.
If we vote this contract, if the board votes this contract down today, there's nothing that I'm aware of that would prevent a new contract being brought back. I understand what Dr. Robinson's saying, that she would like them to be on the same agenda. And if I guess you could vote this termination down today, and then both could be brought back to you in the future if that's the will of the board.
Dr. LaCava?
No, what I was going to, contract's good till the end of this year, but I agree with Mr. Blair as well that, we can bring both contracts back once NYU has had the opportunity to review the contract with our legal counsel. Correct, Mr. Blair?
Right. Yeah, well, that sounds good to me. If the board's will is not to cancel this contract, then we bring it back once the new contract is ready to satisfy that, that feeling that we wouldn't do it, then I'm more than open to that. I think that's a great solution.
Okay, so why don't we take a vote on the motion to terminate this contract? All in favor? Vote.
No, I think, Mr. Barber, I think the motion would have to be to vote down my recommendation, and then we would then bring them both back when the new contract is ready, as I understand it.
But how do we know that? In other words, are we not offering up an amendment that rather than voting this down, that we are going, I don't even know, it's really hard to do this with being frozen, people. But to amend it, that we want to postpone it until it comes back with the new contract.
So
my thought was that we have a motion on the floor to approve the termination. So if we vote that down, then somebody can make a motion to do whatever all you want to do at that point. But if somebody wants to modify, we already have a motion on the floor to terminate. So why don't we just vote that down, and then somebody can make a motion as to, that means the contract is still in place, and somebody can make a motion at that point as to how you want it dealt with in the future. All in favor of terminating the contract?
I want to say something.
Go ahead, Ms. Brill.
All I wanted to say was, is it possible for the superintendent to withdraw the recommendation and then just bring it back? That's all. We don't have to vote. Let him withdraw it.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to do that, Blair, then I think I would be willing to do that.
And then the direction is to bring a new contract from NYU at a later time, correct?
Well, this summer, if possible, with working through all the provisions that we would both need to keep it successful, and then we would bring back a new contract and the termination of the old contract simultaneously. If I'm allowed to do that through Robert Rules of Order, I would do that.
I believe the superintendent can withdraw. I think the maker of the motion to approve and the second should agree, and then the superintendent can withdraw the item.
Okay.
I think Mr. Shaw made the motion. It was seconded by Ms. Brill. So if you both agree,
yes, I agree with that. Yes,
I do as well.
So, Mr. Superintendent, you want to go ahead and withdraw it?
Yes, I don't know the formal process, but I'd like to withdraw the termination of the NYU contract to be brought back at a later date with a new contract that accommodates all of our current realities.
All right, you just did it. We're fine with that. So
okay. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Superintendent, is REG-G1.
Yes, sir. I recommend the board approve 5 grants from the Palm Beach County Youth Services Department for virtual summer camps at Pioneer Park Elementary, Rosenwald Elementary, KEC Canal Point Elementary, Pahokee Elementary, and Pahokee Middle School beginning June 3rd through 2020 to August 3rd, 2020.
That's me.
Motion by Mrs. Andrews, seconded by Dr. Robinson. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. SW1, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to get my screen to move. We are all having some technical difficulties today. I recommend the board approve the attached 34 behavioral health agreements to continue the school community collaboration in support of the mental health plan effective July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Motion. Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Ms. Brill. Discussion? Dr. Robinson?
Thank you. I just pulled this to maybe remind the board that a year ago, we renewed these behavioral health agreements for 1 year with the hopes and expectations that we were going to put a new accountability system in place, a new portal for them to apply, and for accountability measures to determine whether or not they were actually helping our students. And these accountability measures would have been created and outlined in conjunction with the agencies. That has not happened. So it's coming forward to us again for another 1 year approval. I want to thank June Issa for getting it back to the top of her radar. I think it's really, really important because if you look at the data that was supplied to us, it essentially is just a new variation of saying what had been said to me before, that like you referred 14 children to us and we closed the case on 12. And that does not help tell me if you helped Johnny. So I really just pulled this to say why it's renewing again as 1 year, and to just publicly state that I have greater expectations than where we are now, because this work is very, very important, and paper pushing is not enough when it comes to our children. So, but I will be supporting this. I just want it to be clear that I expect more.
All right. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That takes us to board discussion item, Dr. Robinson, rededicating the boardroom.